What up, you guys? It is your girl Lyblob back at it again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about resin statues. Ooh. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lyblob and I am a very avid anime figure collector as well as a resin statue collector, and I have gotten quite a bit of interest over the course of the last couple videos that I've put out since starting YouTube from other fellow anime figure collectors, you know, asking questions and tips and tricks and stuff. So I figured I would put together a very well-researched and documented beginner's guide. I've taken my own knowledge as well as knowledge from other reputable resin statue collecting resources in hopes that today's video will be an educational and informative, comprehensive beginner's guide to resin statue collecting. So today we'll be talking about what a resin statue is, licensed versus unlicensed, safe places to shop from, as well as other helpful things that you need to know if you are interested in getting into resin statue collecting. If you thought anime figure collecting was a niche hobby, be prepared to be surprised at just how much more smaller and more niche the resin statue collecting community and hobby is. And because it's so much smaller and more niche, it makes it just that much a little bit more difficult to navigate. But I will be making this guide in chronological order of the process you will go through if you were ever at the point as a buyer looking to buy your first resin statue piece. So first things first, what is a resin statue? So resin statues, or GK figures, are small batch, fully painted statues. They're typically produced in very small, limited production quantity by small art studios in China. They've been growing recently in popularity in the anime figure collecting community thanks to social media like Instagram and TikTok, and you can buy resin statues as either licensed or unlicensed. So first, let's talk about the difference between a licensed resin statue and an unlicensed resin statue. So what exactly is the difference between a licensed and an unlicensed resin statue, and how do resin statue studios respond when they get restricted by the license holders? It's pretty self-explanatory, but obviously a licensed resin statue is one that has been submitted for approval to the license holders and is like a licensed official product, versus like an unlicensed resin statue, which is like just not that, you know. So when it comes to licensed versus unlicensed and the quality of these statues, generally licensed statues are gonna reign supreme over unlicensed. Generally, the quality is much more superior, there's much more details, and because of that, they're so much more expensive than unlicensed resin statues. This is because they have to go through so many more checks and balances with the license holders before the statues can be placed on the market. Now, just because a figure is unlicensed doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna come out looking like shit. And a lot of the time, resin statues that are unlicensed can rival, or a lot of the times even look better than licensed statues. The great thing about unlicensed pieces is that the studios making them are provided more artistic liberties to do whatever sort of artistic concept they want with the characters. Whereas with licensed pieces, studios have to be much more manga and anime accurate, and they're just not allowed to do anything more creative as opposed to an unlicensed piece. I know a lot of people worry when looking into resin statues about supporting art theft, and unfortunately art theft is one of those things that is very prevalent within the resin statue community, which is why it is so important to do your research before purchasing a statue. Any reputable studio is going to be producing their own artistic concepts for their pieces, as well as respecting licensing restrictions. Let me give you an example. So for example, my friend purchased a Mikey statue from a resin statue studio and they were getting ready to ship it out to her. However, they got notified by the license holders that they were not authorized and not allowed to sell, and they must cease and desist. This was already at the point where they had produced all of them and, you know, all the customers were getting ready to get their orders. However, because they were a reputable and great studio, they halted production, they pulled out all their inventory, and they never shipped any out, and they're just like, took the loss on that piece. Because they were a reputable studio, they respected the license holders. So that's just one example of like, if you do your research and you buy from a reputable studio, you really truly have nothing to worry about. Before you even begin researching reputable studios, you need to know where to shop. Just like with anime figure collecting, there is a plethora of reputable and disreputable shops where you can purchase resin statues from. However, in this video, I plan on highlighting the ones that are most commonly used within the resin statue collecting community, as well as the shops that I am most familiar with. I am going to discuss all these shops in order of popularity within the resin statue community, as well as be 100% transparent to give you guys any sort of tea or knowledge that you need to know before you purchase from any of these shops. So the three shops that I will be discussing today in order are Fanatic Anime Store, Favor GK, and We Are Anime Collectors. All of these shops are based in China and offer licensed as well as unlicensed resin statues. So now let me tell you guys why I rank these shops in the order of which I did. So in first place, we have Fanatic Anime Store. In the opinion of a lot of resin collectors, they are the best of the best when it comes to resin statue shops. They have great shipping, great shop policies, great ways to pay, just overall like a really amazing shop. So second on the list, we have Favor GK. This shop is ranked second on the list from a resin statue community standpoint, but if I were to rank them, I would put them at the last. They're another very long, withstanding, and reputable resin shop, and they only sell authentic licensed and unlicensed resin statues. However, they are very notoriously known to price gouge on their statues, and honestly, they have the most expensive shipping out of most resin shops. As well as just like, in my experience, not amazing customer service. And I've heard from other resin statue collectors that they don't always honor their shop policies all the time. And moving into the last shop on this list, which is We Are Anime Collectors. A lot of people in the resin statue collecting community don't really like this shop as they don't really have an amazing past, which I will get into in a bit, but they have since redeemed themselves, and in my opinion, they are my favorite place to shop with for resin statues. I think that they offer really amazing prices on statues, which are always authentic, and they never really price gouge. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer before I continue this video. I do have an affiliate code with We Are Anime Collectors from my TikTok presence, but I'm not going to advertise what my affiliate code is in this video just because I'm trying to make a very reputable video and I don't want people to find this out later and be swayed by that. So I am being transparent. I am an affiliate with them, but they're still in last place on this list. So with resin statue shops, if you're shopping from any of these three shops, in my experience, they're really reliable and you really won't have anything to worry about. But when it comes to paying for your pre-orders or in-stock figures, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you should expect. So when it comes to payment methods, there's a couple different methods that you'll be using when you buy your resin statues that you wouldn't typically see if you were an anime figure collector buying an anime figure. On FNC and Favor GK, there's three different methods. You can do a full payment of your resin statue. The second method is a deposit method where you pay a deposit on the amount of the statue, and when they're ready to ship it to you, you'll pay off the rest of that balance and then pay the shipping and get it shipped off to you. And the third method is a payment plan where you'll put down a deposit of a certain percentage of the statue's price and then pay it off monthly over time. And of course, both of those shops have different policies when it comes to their payment plans and options. However, that's just something that you wouldn't typically see when buying an anime figure. With anime figures, typically you're going to be buying them either pay now or pay later. With We Are Anime Collectors, you're not able to do a payment plan, so you either have to do the deposit or the full payment. So that is something that is worth noting if you are deciding to buy statues with We Are Anime Collectors. Now, there's a couple things that you need to know about a couple of these shops before you decide to make your purchasing decisions, specifically with Favor GK and We Are Anime Collectors. So starting off with Favor GK, I said this previously, but they are very notoriously known to price gouge on their figures. And on top of the really bad price gouging, their shipping is very expensive. I haven't purchased any big pieces from them, but I've heard from other resin statue collectors that Favor GK shipping is the most expensive out of most resin statue shops. In addition, if they have a statue in stock after release, they will typically raise the prices of those statues by $100 to $200. My Magic Cube Nezuko statue retailed for about $300. You can buy her on Favor GK now for $600. So just be wary of that when purchasing off of Favor GK. And I did also want to talk about the reason why a lot of resin statue collectors don't really like purchasing from We Are Anime Collectors, even though I vouch for them. So a couple years ago when We Are Anime Collectors first opened up shop, they sold recasts of Resin Statues. And just like in the anime figure collecting community, Resin Statue collectors do not like recasts or bootlegs of Resin Statues. It was quite a while ago and they no longer do that. They only sell authentic Resin Statues, and if you follow them on social media, you can actually watch their team going to the art studios to collaborate with those studios, and they constantly showing proof that they do sell authentic pieces. But that is something that has harmed their reputation, and it is the reason why a lot of Resin Statues collectors don't like shopping with them. I originally wanted to go way more into depth with the shops and talk about them for much longer, but I figured that would be kind of boring and drive away interest from the video, so I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet, and hopefully this section was helpful and helped you learn a little bit more about these shops. Now let's get into how you can research reputable studios so that you can decide to buy the statues that you like when you see them. So you know what a resin statue is and you know where to shop, and let's say you're just perusing online and you just see it. You see a piece that's just itching to burn a hole in your wallet, but you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on something that's going to come out looking like shit. Obviously, you're going to want to do research on the studio producing that statue. And I'm not going to lie, when it comes to resin statues, it is definitely more difficult than doing research for official anime figures. The anime figure collecting community is spoiled with an abundance of resources and documentation from fellow anime figure collectors, but resin statue collectors are not really offered the same, like, I guess, privileges. But not all studios are created equally. Some are known to create amazing works of art, whereas others have just popped up out of nowhere looking to capitalize off of the rising interest in resin statue collecting. Which is why it is so important that you do your research to make sure that you're not just taking a big gamble on an expensive piece. Now there's a couple different ways that I do research, and I'm gonna kind of walk you guys through how to do each of them. So first thing that I will do is look at Facebook groups. Genuinely, I believe that the main resource for resin statue news for Western consumers is these resin statue Facebook groups, specifically the GK Resin Hobby one. The admins of that group are always posting new statue updates, statue announcements, as well as progress photos from these studios as these statues are being produced and final statue results. In addition to that, many resin collectors will go into that Facebook group and post the statues that they've gotten and do reviews on them, and it's just like a really great resource. You could basically look up the studio that you're trying to look up in that group, and if it's a good studio, a lot of stuff will pop up. Generally, if it's something that's brand new, you won't be able to find it and you'll kind of be like, okay, like I guess there's not really much known about this. But like for the reputable ones, you'll find them. There's a plethora of resin statue Facebook groups, but GK Resin Hobby definitely is the main one. Another resource that I really like using is a resource from another content creator on TikTok, Statue Senpai. But what he's done is created a huge Discord group full of resin statue collectors where people can go and ask questions and just talk about their resins, talk about like anything resin related. It's a great Discord. I go in there all the time to ask questions, as well as I will use like the Discord search functions to look up studios as well and see what people are talking about. So it's another awesome community resource that you can use for looking up resin statue information. I'm frequently in there creeping or just like asking random questions, although I will say I do get ignored quite a bit, but it's still helpful. And the last and final way that you can research a resin statue studio before you decide to make a purchasing decision is simply by just going on YouTube or going on TikTok, looking up the resin statue studio's name, seeing, you know, people's unboxing videos, watching them, seeing the quality, seeing what people are saying about them. I mean, honestly, like, social media is a great tool. Basically, all of these resources are on social media. The resin statue collecting community doesn't really have a good Reddit, and they don't have a database for my figure collection, so clearly you do have to make an effort to dig around before you decide to buy a piece, but it's totally worth it because that feeling when you get your first really gorgeous piece and you put it together, it's just like, it's so addicting. Like, it's definitely worth the effort. So now that you know how to do your own research, let's talk about ordering resin statues. Just like in the anime figure collecting hobby, pre-ordering is the norm when it comes to resin statues, and they will give you a certain time frame as to when the statue will come out. However, post-COVID, in the world after COVID, delays can happen and do happen often. Now, one thing I will warn you about when it comes to resin statues is not pre-ordering. Now, as I said before, statues are limited, like very, very limited. So if you've done the research and you decide that you really want one, I would honestly just go ahead and pull the trigger. Reason being that if you decide later on to buy it after it's been released and there's no shop that's selling it, you're gonna have to pay crazy aftermarket prices and it's gonna be near impossible to find. You won't honestly be able to find it unless another collector is selling it, or if you have a connection in China of somebody who can source something for you. It's much harder to find an out-of-stock resin as opposed to an out-of-stock anime figure. So that is just one thing that is really important to note. If you want something really badly, you should pre-order it, especially if it's a resin statue. Another thing I wanted to touch upon is shipping, and shipping can be a real predicament, so pay very close attention. It is extremely rare for any resin statue shop to offer free shipping, and these pieces are extremely large and extremely heavy to ship, so expect it to be expensive. For a regular sized resin statue, I would expect to pay between $100 to $300, but it is not unheard of to pay above $300 to get a resin statue shipped to you. On top of that, it is very rare that you will get any other shipping option besides sea mail. Just because the shipping options out of China are so expensive, there really isn't even any point in asking for DHL or anything like that, so expect to wait for your resin statues. And another thing that's really important to talk about is breaks. Unfortunately, breaks happen, and it is a very common thing to hear about when it comes to resin statue collecting. And there's really nothing you can do about it. These statues go on a long journey to get to wherever you live, and they're made of fragile resin pieces, so it is possible for your statues to break. Now, personally, I've never received a broken statue piece, but it is not unheard of at all. When it comes to breaks, you're always going to be taking a chance with studios that produce unlicensed statues. It is not unheard of that they will not replace your broken pieces, so be prepared to learn how to fix it with some glue. However, if you're buying a licensed statue, you are more likely, most of the time, they will replace your broken pieces. And the final tip that I wanted to mention when it comes to resin statues is storage. Some of these resin statues are very heavy. I'm talking like 20 to 30 pounds per piece. So you don't want to put them on a glass detail shelf. It will shatter. So make sure that you plan your storage accordingly for your resin statue whenever you buy it. That way you don't shatter your shelving, break your figure, break your statues, I don't know, dent your hardwood floor. They can be heavy, they're expensive. I'm sure the stuff in your house is expensive too, so just plan accordingly. But that is basically everything that I had written down for this beginner's guide to resin statues, and I hope this video was helpful. I'm now going to be citing my sources because although I did use my own knowledge for this video, I did rely upon other people's stuff, so I want to credit them because I don't steal content and hot girls don't steal content, so haha, let's get into citing. So the first source I use is the Anime GK subreddit's FAQ page. I just took a couple things off of there, not really too much stuff there, but that is one of my sources. And of course, I used some knowledge from the Statue Senpai GK Discord server. So thank you so much to Statue Senpai for providing that resource for everyone to look at. It's so helpful. It's such a great tool. Like genuinely, that Discord is such a great place to get information. And finally, I also used two other TikTokers resources in this video. Nisha the Nerd on TikTok. She has great resin statue information. She's a close friend of mine. I think I talk about her like almost in every video, but she is a great resin statue resource. Nadia Lloyd, who is another huge resin statue collector. She has a crazy collection, over 30 resin statues pre-ordered. She's super knowledgeable and she's an amazing collector. So go ahead and give her a follow as well because she is just like incredibly knowledgeable, a great resource if you are a beginner resin statue collector. That is it for today's video. I hope that it was helpful and I hope that it helped you feel a little bit more comfortable into venturing into resin statue collecting. And if you have any comments or questions for me, let me know down below. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, but I am not like a super crazy resin statue collecting pro. I'm just knowledgeable. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, a comment, a subscribe. Anything that you can do to engage and support with my video helps me greatly. But that is it for today, and I will catch you guys next time. Okay, peace.